Okay. Hello.
Hi, Michael.
Hi there. Um, I'll just give a couple of minutes for people to log in. Okay.
Hi, Michael. How's it
Hi
going?
there. Hey, Daniel. How you doing? Really nice to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
How you doing, man? You good?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, it's been an interesting month in terms of the portfolio, right?
Um, you mean that it's kind of coming back up?
Yeah, I mean just
Yeah,
every
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
having been through all the stuff you went through. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Couldn't agree more. This um, it's not you, Daniel. No, hold on 1 second. Um, don't know. Someone. Sorry, can everyone mute their microphones? I'm really sorry. There's a massive echo. Hello. Well, better. Thank you, sir. No, not really. Let me see if I can mute. Just give me a second. Sorry. I think I've muted everyone.
Still echoing.
Still echoing like mad. Okay, can you hear me? Cool, man. Good. Right. So yeah, so it was really interesting because in July and August, it was really difficult for me. It was really difficult. And I kept on going back to my foundation, but at the same time, Dan, it was like, it was really difficult. It was like cutthroat. Um, and like everyone, like many people in this game, right? Really competitive, really determined, really eager, really hungry, and no matter how much you believe in yourself, getting people to believe in your journey as well is really, really important. Because there's no point going on a journey as a leader and being the only person across the line, right? You need to kind of get people coming with you. And sadistically, I kind of, on the one hand, it was brutal. On the other hand, I kind of enjoyed it because it really showed me a lot that I need to improve in how I explain myself. Um, because no matter how much I say to people, listen, like I am really hardworking and I am going to do whatever it takes to outperform. It doesn't matter that, right? People don't care. People want to see that. Um, so, after my discussions with you, discussions with Sri, discussions with a few other people, I felt, okay, you know what? It doesn't compensate things like uploving. It's not worth it. You can say, oh, this is going to be a real great business, but if it's not working for a 3 month period, to hell with it. People just don't want to hear about it. And it's the same thing about gig color technology. If it's not working these 3 months right now, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, forget it, piece of crap. Why do you bother? Like, all this stuff. So, yeah, we're kind of, I'm really excited to learn. And I've always said that investing is one of those businesses that it forces you to learn new ideas. You know that old Charlie Munger quote. I don't know if you have you read this book, Daniel. Have you read any of Charlie Munger's stuff? The
I have
Almanac.
not
Okay.
specifically. Yeah.
Okay. I cannot recommend this book enough. Like I say to my daughter, like she's 9 years old, and I say to her, listen, doesn't matter anything else you're gonna do in your life. Like these are the only few things you need to do in your life, and like reading the Charlie Almanac is like one of the things that you need to do. You don't need to. There's a lot of stuff that you don't need to read. Ideas change quite quickly, but reading Charlie's Almanac,
Oh, my.
it's like, I mean, the idea of of grinding, but it's said in a way that, you know, the guy was born in, like, I think, I could be wrong in the exact date, but I think he was born in around 1928 or something like that, or 1930, something in that ballpark, maybe 1932. But it's like saying that idea that, you know, I want to go to sleep a tiny bit smarter than I woke up. And that kind of, you know, they call, I'm not American, but like that kind of, they call it quote unquote Midwest attitude of kind of hard working people. It's really what it is. We define it as a grind, but it's really, you know, that kind of attitude that people will take care of you if you first take care of yourself. You know, you kind of have to put in the sweat. And when you say to other people, and you look at them and you're like, okay, these are my ideas that I have about XYZ company, and you discuss that stuff, and you can see who's putting the work and who's really thinking. You know, there are a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, sounds whatever, but you can tell straight away who's putting the work and who hasn't. I'm Bolon. I'm just very excited, like I'm sorry. Yeah, the portfolio is doing well. I'm very satisfied with that. I feel like there's still a tiny bit of things that I need to optimize. And when I go into 2025, this is one of the things that I'm going to try to be more brutal with. And this is when I feel like something is kind of touch and go. For example, with LifeMD or Auster, when I kind of feel like I have some doubts there, I'm going to just like, okay, just go, because I have the patience, but most of the people don't have the patience. So I need to be people to be aligned with me in that vision. So through that feedback that I've had with you, Daniel, and other people as well, I feel like, okay, I'm going to get into 2025 as a much more aggressive portfolio in terms of if I have my doubts or anything, I'm going to walk. And this will alienate a lot of people, because people, you know, they buy into the idea that something, you know, like you and you discussed, you wrote this kind of tweet, like this thread to me, and you said, oh, you know, let's say that there's some ideas that work, some that don't. This is the game. The game is that not everything is going to work, and you need to be very, very crystal clear with people. And I feel that the longer that I can put out the track record, people are going to have conviction in my vision. And ultimately, if I say, listen, I recommended X, Y, Z, it's no longer something that I'm 100% passionate over. Let's just put it to cash. And people to believe that, okay, like you said, through my hard work, I'll find something else, man. There's like upcoming earnings season in a couple of weeks. There's always something happening. This one idea that I wrote about intuitive machines, Luna, the ticker, like that was like in between quarters. It was like something really like out of the normal course of events of the business shows up. It's like, wow, this is really interesting, you know? So yeah, these things do happen, and you don't need to keep doubling down on things that are not working. So long story short, need to get people aligned that going forward, it's going to be difficult, because ideas that I cherish, I'm going to have to just destroy those ideas, you know, and it sucks, but I need to move that portfolio forward. Okay, what I wanted to talk today about is I wanted to go through, some people have written to me asking me, and it might be a bit of a primitive question, but I'm going to go through the basics of understanding the free cash flow. So I'm going to break this down into 3 parts. So I'm going to talk about it in a really simple way, because some people, you know, are more active investors, and I feel that you'll still get something out of this talk. Some people are kind of just want to really understand, like I keep talking about this, and what does it actually mean? So it doesn't actually mean profitability, and I'm going to explain that. So I'm going to first explain in a very simple term what is the free cash flow, and then I'm going to go through and give you a practical example of 2 companies that are quote unquote highly profitable, and that one of them is not really reporting the free cash flow that they claim it is. And I'll get to the punchline straight away. So the one that I recommend is GigaCloud Technologies, and I'm going to go through that free cash flow, and then we can see, all this nonsense of what is or what is not the business's underlying health. Okay, so the free, a lot of companies have these kind of adjusted metrics. Buffett quotes about this, that the newest financial metrics are EBE, earnings before everything. And it's kind of a joke that everyone's like, oh yeah, I have earnings if you don't count all my expenses. Yeah, I make a ton of money if you don't count what I have to pay out as well. So Buffett jokes that it's called EBE. Some people call it adjusted EBITDA. And that is not really a measure or an indication of the underlying profitability of the business. So the free cash flow, and a lot of times on Seeking Alpha and other financial media outlets, they report free cash flow, and it's not really the free cash flow of the business. And the reason for that is because often, some cases, either the business is a software business, so they're capitalizing, so they're investing in their future growth. Other times, you have some businesses, I won't mention it because the stock is doing quite well at the moment, and maybe some people are on the call, they may have it. I'll mention another one that I do know that it's not doing particularly well, so people won't mind me dogging on it. So some businesses, for example, like Snowflake, they have this reported free cash flow, and the free cash flow statement is broken down into three parts. It's like the cash flow from operations, that's the blood of the business. And then there's the investing part of the cash flow statement. And then the third part, which arguably the most important part of the free cash flow statement, which is the financing part. And in the case of, for example, Snowflake, they have a lot that they pay out in the taxes for the options of the management team. So they're saying to the management team, hey, you know what, cash in your options, we'll pay the taxes on those options, and we'll give you even more options on top of that. So if you look on something like a financial media outlet like Seeking Alpha, you will see, hey, it makes a lot of free cash flow, but you just need to kind of spend not many minutes, but a few minutes just looking on the SEC filing, or I'm not sure if Snowflake in this particular instance reports another press release, but it's not difficult. You go on the company's quarterly earnings, and there's a 10Q for quarter, or a 10K if it's like the end of the year, the 10Q for quarter, and you look at the cash flow statement, there's three parts. The bottom part, you just see those numbers. Those numbers are big and shocking, relative as a percentage, relative to the amount of revenue it makes. Say, oh, whoa, what is that figure? But if it's a small figure, don't worry about it. If it's like less than 1% of the revenue, don't worry about it. Don't overcomplicate investing. Investing is really difficult as it is. Try and kind of keep it quite simple. Next part. For me, I believe that this is something that I believe very much in my heart, that the way to do in best type of investing is what I call inflection investing. This is where you're trying to estimate, don't need to be a hero, but you try and estimate what the business's underlying free cash flow will be next year. Don't be a hero, don't overcomplicate. Like, as I said, investing is really difficult and things change all the time. Interest rates go up and down. This changes the multiple that people are willing to pay for that future free cash flow. So don't make it too complicated. Have an estimate, ballpark, of what the business is going to make next year. And you don't need to kind of, get too difficult and too mathematical about it. I generally believe that 1 or 2 lines for 99.9% of theses will get you the underlying result that you're looking for. And those exceptions where they don't get it, don't go there. Just the thesis has to be really, really simple. Okay. So if you just have some estimate of what the business is going to make next year and just compare to what it's done this year. Okay. So if you think, oh, it's going to go from, let's say, just for round numbers, 100 million to 200 million, well, that's a big jump. how do you figure that? If you say, okay, I estimate it's going to make, let's say, I don't know, let's say 140 million, and this year is making about 100 million. That's okay. You know, a business can do this kind of job. Okay, so just have a tiny bit of common sense. So for me, it's really important, and I believe that if you get the free cash flow next year of the business right, the share price will follow. You don't need to overcomplicate things. Just make it really, really simple. Okay. Now, I'm going to try, and I always do this, and I'm going to share my screen, and I always mess this up. Hold on. Okay. Right. Can you guys see this? Can anyone see this screen? Can someone just say yes?
Yeah, we're good.
Right. So, thank you so much. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that. This is the EBITDA, adjusted EBITDA for Gig Cloud Technologies. So I estimate very roughly that the business is going to make around about, I think I said, let me just check this, 160 million of EBITDA. Okay, so you see, just it's made about kind of 80 million right now. It's a seasonal business, so it's Q4 heavy. You know, retailers typically make a lot of money in Q4. So I just double this. You don't need a hero. And you see the business makes about in the ballpark of 180 million of EBITDA. And if you look on the cash flow statement for when they reported the 10K, which I think may have been in May of 2024 this year, and you say, okay, then this is how much they spend in CapEx, and you grow that figure out, and you say, okay, it's like let's grow it by 50% because you know it's a much bigger business, blah blah. And you take a large margin of safety, I think that they're going to make around about 90 to 100 million of free cash flow. So it's not that difficult to do this. You can pause the video if you need to. This is quite straightforward. Okay. Now here's a different business that I was looking at last week. Okay. So this is Pagaya Technologies, and they guide that they're going to make 200 million of EBITDA this year. Okay, so it's basically the same between what Gear Cloud and Pagaya Technology is going to make. But if you see, they had a fundraise. Well, wasn't quite a fundraise. How to term this? It was a debt restructuring. They had a debt restructuring last week, and they didn't release a press release. So this is just hidden away in the SEC filings. But there's a presentation that they put for prospective investors. And I've underlined on the screen that they talk about being cash flow positive next year, and they talk about GAAP net income positive. Now, for a lot of investors, like GAAP net income sounds like the business is going to make a lot of free cash flow, but that's not actually the case, because if you look at their business, this is a bit blurry, but you can see that they have this investments in loans and securities. So what's actually happening in this business is they're a loan originator. That means they just kind of lend out money, but to lend out money, you have to borrow that money from somewhere. So you have to invest quite a lot to get that money in to lend it out. So if you look at the actual underlying free cash flow of that business, it's not very strong. You can have a business that is cash flow positive, or GAAP net income, reporting GAAP net income, but actually doesn't make anything in terms of free cash flow, but they have to grow their balance sheet to keep this cycle going. So this type of business can do really, really well for a certain amount of time. It can grow its revenues at quite a rapid rate, provided that the balance sheet can support it. So I gave you just two examples. Another one that I was looking at, you can look at this yourself if you want to afterwards, is Digital Turbine. The ticker is APPS, not to be confused with AppLovin, which is just APP. So two different businesses, although two kind of mobile advertising businesses. But if you look at APPS, Digital Turbine, you'll see the same setup again. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I don't have anything else apart from that. If you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask about the free cash flow aspect, or anything else, this is a really good time if you want to ask any questions.
So, Michael, just so I understand with the PGY, those
Yeah.
investments in securities
Mhm.
do not reflect an act, like they're not a substitute for free cash flow. Even
Yeah.
though technically, like they have that, it's not like they can draw that as profit. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So the way it works is that they're a middleman. So they get the money in from, let's say, institutions. Okay. They get the money in, then they lend the money out. Okay. So they're in the middle.
Mhm.
Okay. They're supposed to make a spread between the money that they borrow and the money that they lend. Okay. Now, the way it actually works is that when you lend it out, if the business model is relatively good, you lend it out, you collect what is called a receivable. A receivable is just another word for an IOU. I owe you some money, okay? So it's just an IOU, a receivable. And that receivable, after a certain amount of time, should be returned as cash, okay? But if the business model is not quite good, it's lending out that money and those IOUs or those receivables are growing, but you're actually not able to return all that cash back. So what you happens in that instance is you carry too many receivables and you have to take that some of that portion, you have to get rid of it, you have to write it off as a bad debt. So
Yeah.
what's happening is that you say, oh, you go to some other third party and you say, oh, would you like my receivables? You take those receivables, those IOU piece of papers, you get, let's say, a spread for getting some of that money back, and you give us the cash up front. So they receive the cash up front, but the actual underlying business, which is to lend out and receive the money back in, doesn't really work that well. And these businesses happen sometimes. They do show up. Another one, which was Lending Club, similar kind of idea. Um, these businesses grow really fast because you're just lending out the money. And for a while, it looks really good because the revenues are really strong. And because it's a small business, the balance sheet starts off quite in a good position. But after, let's say, 3 or 5 years, the balance sheet starts to bulge, and then it's like, whoa, it gets kind of difficult to manage that. So generally, I try to stay away from that, but I've been guilty because I invested in Money Lion, and even though Money Lion doesn't have this problem in the sense that this kind of shenanigans with the free cash flow, they're not making quite as much free cash flow as I had hoped. So this again is what I'm saying, that I've been through that learning path in July and August where I said, okay, this is what I believed. Where did I make a mistake? And I spend a lot of time writing an accountability journal, explaining, what did I think and what went wrong. And I recommend that really much because we're busy people, there's a lot of stuff in our lives, we have family commitments, whatever else happening on the side. And it's sometimes we forget and we fool ourselves into believing, it didn't work out, but it wasn't my fault. Just write it down like on a piece of paper, and it doesn't need to be like really convoluted. Just being accountable to yourself is quite helpful because it just puts you on the straight and narrow. Yeah.
No, that's helpful. And that is like you mentioned at the beginning, the tendency for like one bad quarter and it just sinks. Like you
Yeah.
take like
Yeah.
all those
Agree
gains and it's
wholeheartedly.
like it can just evaporate. And so that's why
Yes.
it is very interesting to to try to like there is like you said, time in the market will kind of soften all that. But again, time
Yeah.
is there's an opportunity cost, right? So like
Correct.
if that's what I'm just thinking like I think the idea like that you're talking about is like, is it going to move in the next
Yeah.
2 quarters? Like
Yeah.
that's like, is that a good question that it seems like you're asking more of that question as opposed to like, are we going to get some movement? And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
been very patient with a lot of stocks
Hmm.
that eventually have paid off really well, but it takes a while. And
It
so
takes a long
that's,
time. Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's tough.
it is tough. It is tough. And I feel like these quote unquote untested businesses, generally, untested, I think like below 2 billion market cap. Even something like Sentinel One, approximately, I don't know, 8, 10 billion market cap. Even these type of businesses are kind of untested. The market isn't sure how it feels. You look, and you can look at like Sentinel One, which is like 10 times, no, sorry, 20 times bigger than Moneyline, and you can see that it has one bad quarter, and the share price is just down like 40%, and that's like these are like several billions moving around in a very short period of time. So with these untested businesses, you cannot overstay. Like I did the same with Ulster. You cannot overstay. And it's easy to say in hindsight, oh, you cannot overstay and blah, blah. But I will be much more active in terms of saying, okay, it's not working for me. To be able to be mature enough and confident enough to do that. I think that's important. Yeah. Any other questions that anyone else wants to ask?
Michael, this is Haji. I have a question for you. Yesterday, or maybe this morning, I don't know. I was checking the VR chat, and I happened to see that you guys mentioned about not you specifically, like ZIM International Shipping. And this morning, I also heard on the news that there is a strike on the east ports as well on the west on America. So I'm not sure how much experience you have, but would you like to share some insight about it? Like, could there be any opportunity over there in any near term? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
So we're very lucky. We got the man himself. George can tell us about Zim. George has been telling me about Zim since it was $12 a share. Like this is like a home run beyond home run. Like it did. Like all I had to do was literally listen to the man himself. So, George, can you, in a couple of words, explain what you think about Zim right now?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to say that it is not a DVR pick. And Michael, being the very straightforward and honest man he is, even though I begged him to buy some and was going to give him money to do so, he refused because he has not put it on his list. That's the man of integrity. I will simply say that it is risky. It is speculative. Yes, I've doubled the price. And to say right now, I think it is a good time to buy some, but it is risky. And the longer the strike goes, the more it'll go up. But it's a good, at this point, it does look like it's a hold for the next 3 months at least. But that's, it's a risky stock. So I would pick Michael's stocks over mine. I have to say that. And thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, George. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'm sorry that I couldn't personally add anything to this conversation. There's a lot of stuff in the market, and people ask me all the time. For example, last week someone, maybe Tom, I can't remember, asked me about Pinterest. I have a very small watch list because when something is available to go, I don't want half-baked ideas. I want something that I feel like, okay, I want people to come with me on this journey and follow me into this position. So I need to know there's a really high amount of conviction. And that conviction takes a long time. I was saying before in the chat room, something like Samsara, it's done really well for me, or even PayPal, people might know better, PayPal. It's done really well for me, but it's done really well just in a very recently. And I have been following this business for a really long time. And I recommend like PayPal, like coming to about 10 months ago. But I had the conviction to recommend it when, because I've been following for a really long time. So sometimes I say, okay, that's interesting. And I look at stuff, but between something being interesting and me saying, okay, guys, listen, this is what we're going to buy. This makes sense because it is. That is the difference between, let's say, oh, something kind of could work out, or something is going to work out. Yeah, sorry, that kind of got derailed about Zim. Sorry, that's all I kind of wanted to add on that. Does anyone else have any other questions that they want to share? No? Well, okay, I would like to say thank you everybody for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for everyone to come around. I hope this has been helpful. Yeah, and see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Bye.